The battlefield reeked of burning flesh, scorched metal, and the acrid bite of plasma residue. Smoke twisted in the evening air, rising from shattered wrecks of human and Zarelian war machines. Sergeant Ryan Carter moved carefully through the wreckage, his combat boots crunching over crystallized sand, now turned to fragile glass-like shards by relentless energy blasts. Bodies lay everywhere, human and Zarelian alike, fused into the earth, half buried in the blood-soaked dunes. His rifle's charge indicator flickered. 42%. Shit. Not great. Enough to fight, maybe, but not much good if he was stranded behind enemy lines. His squad was gone. He had watched their biosignatures vanish one by one on his HUD as the battle turned into a desperate retreat. Now he was alone, guided only by his malfunctioning nav system and the stubborn survival instinct drilled into him through years of war. Then, a sound. A weak groan. Ryan froze, raising his rifle, his heart hammering. He scanned the ruins. Something moved. Beyond the jagged remains of a hover striker, something or someone lay sprawled in the sand. He advanced slowly, his finger tense on the trigger, his eyes trained for traps. Then he saw her. A Zarelian warrior, barely clinging to life. Her skin, once a pale violet, was ashen with blood loss. Her black combat suit, sleek and form-fitting, was ripped open in places, charred along the edges. But what caught his attention was far worse. Her legs were gone, severed just below the knees, the flesh cauterized in gruesome, uneven stumps. Plasma mine, most likely. Damn, Ryan exhaled. She stirred, her silver-white hair matted with grime. And then, her eyes opened. A shade of fractured amethyst, glowing faintly even in the dim light. The moment she saw him, she snapped to life, her muscles tensing, reaching for a weapon that wasn't there. Pain shot through her, and she collapsed back with a strangled breath, her hands curling into trembling fists. Ryan didn't lower his weapon. "Easy," he said, voice calm but firm. "Not here to hurt you." She glared at him, then spat something in her native tongue. His helmet's translator crackled to life, processing the words. "Rot in a black hole, human bastard." Despite the situation, Ryan smirked. "Hell of a mouth on you." Her jaw clenched. "Kill me or leave me." Her standard was rough, but the anger in her voice needed no translation. "I need no pity from your kind." Ryan studied her. By all rights, he should put her out of her misery, or leave. She was the enemy. Zarelians had started this war. Protocol was crystal clear. Wounded Zarelians were not to be engaged. But something made him hesitate. Maybe it was the way she refused to beg, despite her condition. Maybe it was the fierce, unbroken pride still burning in her violet eyes. Or maybe he was just tired. Tired of watching people die for a war neither side truly understood anymore. "What's your name?" he asked, her brow furrowed. "What?" "Your name." He adjusted his grip on his rifle. "I'm Ryan Carter. If I'm going to save your life, seems only polite to know who I'm saving." She stared at him, like he had just grown a second head. "You're insane." "Yeah, I get that a lot." A beat of silence. Then, finally, "Kayla Voss, warrior of the Zarelian Vanguard." Ryan nodded, setting down his pack. "All right, Kayla, let's see if I can keep you in one piece." Ryan carried Kayla through the twilight dunes, her weight pressing against his armor-plated chest. Her breathing was shallow, but the emergency nanites he had injected into her system were keeping her stable. The wind howled across the wasteland, sending dust spiraling into the air. His suit's HUD flickered, scanning, searching. There, a structure buried beneath centuries of shifting sand. An old research station. Perfect. The entrance was partially collapsed, but Ryan forced his way inside, maneuvering through the crumbling hallways until he found a stable chamber. Emergency lights still glowed, casting a cold, blue haze over the abandoned consoles and forgotten equipment. He set Kayla down carefully, pulling out thermal blankets and a portable heater to combat the desert's bitter night chill. Then, a groan. Kayla stirred. Her violet eyes blinked open. "Where?" she rasped. "Somewhere safe," Ryan said, handing her a canteen. "Drink." She took it. No argument. That alone told him how weak she was. "You should have left me," she muttered, voice hoarse. "Yeah, well, I've never been great at following orders." A pause. Then to his surprise, a small, wry smirk. "Foolish human." Ryan grinned. "I get that a lot." Over the next few hours, Ryan worked to stabilize Kayla's injuries. She stared at her missing legs, jaw tight. "I am crippled," she said. "A warrior with no legs is nothing." Ryan scoffed. "Ever heard of cybernetics?" Kayla stiffened. "Xyrelians believe in natural perfection. Cybernetic augmentation is seen as weakness." Ryan shook his head. "That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard." She blinked. Then, to his shock, she laughed. A musical, soft laugh, despite everything. She must have felt the shift in the air, too. The undeniable pull between them. Her gaze lingered on him. "Your intelligence reports. Did they tell you that some Xyrelians find human males attractive?" Ryan nearly choked. "Excuse me?" Kayla smirked, eyes flicking over him. "You're an especially fine specimen." Ryan's pulse quickened, and in that moment he knew. This war had already changed forever. The deserted research station. The old research station was silent except for the soft hum of emergency power still running through ancient circuits. The walls were lined with dust-covered consoles, their once pristine surfaces now worn by time and neglect. Somewhere deeper inside, the faint flicker of holographic displays cast eerie shadows, like ghosts of the past. Ryan Carter moved carefully, setting up defensive perimeter sensors at the entrance. The battlefield had taught him one thing: safety was an illusion. Behind him, Kayla Voss stirred. Ryan turned in time to see her struggling to sit up, her body tense with pain. "I wouldn't do that," he warned. Kayla glared at him, her violet eyes burning with defiance. "I will not lie here like a helpless hatchling." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "You lost both your legs, got hit with plasma shrapnel, and barely made it through the night. You're not weak, but you are damn well injured." She growled, frustration evident in the way her hands clenched the fabric of the thermal blanket. But when she exhaled, she didn't argue. A step forward. Ryan knelt beside her, pulling out a fresh med-gel injector from his combat pack. "This will help with the pain." Kayla's gaze flicked to the injector, then back to him. There was hesitation there, a flicker of something Ryan couldn't quite place. "You hesitate?" she asked. Ryan smirked. "Didn't think Xyrelians were the type to refuse help?" "I am not refusing," she said, voice quieter now. "I am not used to this." "This?" She looked at him, and for the first time since they met, the fire in her eyes softened just a little. "Mercy," she admitted. Ryan held her gaze for a long moment before pressing the injector to her shoulder. The med gel hissed as it entered her bloodstream. Kayla exhaled sharply, but when the pain relief settled in, her shoulders finally relaxed. Progress. Hours later, Ryan's perimeter sensors blared an alert. Something was coming. He snapped to his feet, grabbing his rifle. The holographic interface on his forearm flickered to life. Multiple contacts. 2 squads. One was human. One was Xyrelian. Shit. Kayla must have sensed his tension. "What is it?" Ryan turned to her, his expression grim. "We've got company, both sides." She tensed. "They will not be looking for peace." "No kidding." Ryan moved to the weapon lockers built into the walls. To his relief, they weren't entirely empty. A few plasma rifles, some stun grenades, and, most importantly, a repair module for Kayla's cybernetic limbs. He grabbed one of the rifles and tossed it to her. She caught it, effortlessly, despite her injuries. "You can fight?" he asked. Kayla smirked, testing the weight of the weapon. "Even without legs, I am still a warrior." Ryan's chest tightened at those words. He knelt beside her, attaching the repair module to the cybernetic ports where her legs should have been. The station's advanced tech would allow her new prosthetics to sync with her neural system. But as he worked, he felt her watching him. There was something in her gaze. Something new. Trust. The moment didn't last. A plasma explosion rocked the entrance. They were out of time. Ryan grabbed his rifle, rolling into position just as the first squad breached the ruins. The humans arrived first. They moved like trained killers, because they were. Special ops. Tactical. Their leader, a captain in the Marine Corps, stepped forward. "Sergeant Carter?" The captain's voice was sharp. "We thought you were dead." "Yeah, well, I got lucky," Ryan called back, his rifle trained on them. "Stand down." The captain's gaze flicked to Kayla. His face hardened. "You're harboring a Zarelian," he said, his voice laced with disgust. Ryan's grip tightened on his weapon, his own people. And yet, in this moment, they were more of a threat to him than Kayla was. Before he could speak, another plasma detonation rocked the ruins. The Zarelians had arrived. The opposing squad poured through the secondary entrance, weapons raised. Their leader, a Zarelian commander with deep emerald skin and piercing golden eyes, stepped forward. He sneered at Kayla. "So the rumors were true," he said in Zarelian. "Kayla Voss, daughter of House Voss, lying with a human." Kayla's jaw tightened. Ryan could feel it, the anger rolling off her. "I did not lie with him," she spat back, switching to Zarelian. "He saved my life." The commander's golden eyes narrowed. "Then he is a fool, and you are a traitor." Weapons snapped up on both sides. The air crackled with tension. Ryan's mind raced. They were outnumbered, outgunned. If either side opened fire, it would be a massacre. Then Kayla spoke, loud, clear, commanding. "You call me a traitor, yet you came here to kill a man who showed mercy." Her voice rang through the chamber, cutting through the tension. "Tell me, Commander, does that make you righteous?" The Zarelian soldiers hesitated. A seed of doubt. A shift. The human captain felt it too. His jaw clenched, but his trigger finger loosened. Just slightly. Ryan took the chance. "Listen to yourselves," he called out, stepping between the two sides. "You're fighting over bullshit." He gestured to Kayla. "This war took her legs. It took my squad. And for what? So some politicians can feel powerful?" Silence. A moment of hesitation. Then, the commander's gaze darkened. "You speak as if this war can be ended." Kayla met his gaze, unwavering. "Perhaps it can." They left the ruins together. Not as enemies, but not as allies either. Not yet. It would take time. But the moment had changed everything. Ryan felt it. Kayla felt it. And as she reached for his hand, for the first time without hesitation, Ryan knew one thing for certain. The wind howled across the barren wasteland, carrying the distant echoes of war. Ryan and Kayla moved cautiously, their forms silhouetted against the twilight sky. His grip on her hand was firm yet steady, anchoring her to the moment as she adjusted to the weight of her new cybernetic legs. The sleek prosthetics, scavenged from the ruins' medical bay, gleamed faintly under the light of the twin moons. The neural synchronization process had been jarring at first, sending jolts of sensation through both of them. But Kayla was a warrior, adaptable, resilient. She walked now, not as she once had, but she walked. Ryan stole a glance at her. Despite everything, her posture was proud, unyielding. The fire in her amethyst eyes hadn't dimmed. If anything, it burned even brighter now. "You're quiet," he said. Kayla tilted her head slightly, the wind playing with the strands of her silver-white hair. "There is much to consider," she admitted. "What we are doing, it changes things." Ryan exhaled, his grip on his rifle tightening. "Yeah, I figured that out the moment I didn't shoot you." Kayla smirked. "You regret it?" Ryan chuckled. "Not for a second." A moment of silence stretched between them. Not uncomfortable, but heavy with unspoken thoughts. Then his suit's sensors blared a warning. Movement, multiple signatures. They had been found. Ryan and Kayla spun in unison, their weapons snapping up. 2 squads, 1 human, 1 Zarelian. The same forces that had come for them in the ruins had tracked them here. The human Captain Reynolds, his battle-worn armor marked with the insignia of the 7th Marine Division, stepped forward first. His sharp gaze locked onto Ryan. "Carter," he called out, his voice carrying over the desert wind. "You've made some questionable decisions today." Ryan didn't lower his weapon. "Yeah, well, you know me, always the rebel." The Zarelian commander, a towering figure with emerald green skin and piercing gold eyes, stood beside Reynolds. His expression was unreadable, but his gloved hand rested on the hilt of a plasma blade. "You stand beside an enemy," the commander said to Kayla, his tone disapproving. Kayla lifted her chin. "I stand beside someone who saved my life. Can you say the same?" Tension crackled in the air. Ryan felt the weight of 1,000 possibilities pressing down on them. This was it. A choice. They could fight and die here. Or they could do something far more dangerous. They could change everything. Ryan lowered his rifle first, a bold move, a reckless one. Kayla followed a second later. "We're not your enemies," Ryan said, scanning both squads. "Not anymore. And if you think this war still makes sense after everything we've seen, then maybe you're the ones who need to stand down." Silence. Then, Reynolds spoke first. "You really think you can just walk away from this war?" Ryan's expression hardened. "I think it's time someone tried." The Zarelian commander's golden eyes flickered to Kayla. "You always were different," he murmured. Kayla arched a brow. "And yet you still look surprised." A long pause. Then, unexpectedly, the commander sheathed his plasma blade. "We will take you to the council," he declared. "Let them decide your fate." Reynolds let out a slow breath. "Same with the human Senate. This is way above my pay grade." Ryan and Kayla exchanged a glance. It wasn't victory. Not yet. But it was a step forward. And that was more than either of them had dared to hope for. The journey back to Neutral Station Aurora was tense. The massive space station, positioned between human and Zarelian-controlled space, had long been a neutral ground, though it had never seen a meeting quite like this. As the docking clamps engaged, Ryan and Kayla stepped onto the polished floors of the diplomatic hall, their every move monitored by a room full of wary politicians and military leaders. They had expected outrage. They had expected condemnation. What they hadn't expected was curiosity. The human chancellor regarded them carefully. A Marine and a Zarelian warrior, working together. That's new. The Zarelian high priestess, her long crimson robes trailing behind her, stepped forward, her gaze unreadable. "And the rumors?" she asked. "Are they true?" Kayla met her gaze without flinching. "If you speak of my bond with Sergeant Carter," she said, "then yes. They are true." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Ryan glanced at Kayla. "Well, that got their attention." Kayla smirked. They always did love their theatrics. The discussion was long, filled with argument, resistance, and disbelief. But slowly, as the night stretched on, The leaders of both species began to realize what Ryan and Kayla already knew. The war had been built on lies, on fear, on misunderstandings. But here, proof of another path stood before them. A human, a Xyrillian, together, and something even more unexpected, a child. When the medical scans revealed Kayla's pregnancy, the room fell into stunned silence. A hybrid, a life forged from two warring species, a future neither side had believed possible. Kayla placed a protective hand over her abdomen, her expression defiant. "This is not a mistake," she said. "This is evolution." Ryan laced his fingers through hers. "This war ends," he said, his voice steady. "Right here, right now." The leaders of both factions stared at them. The choice was clear, and history was about to be rewritten. New Eos, the first joint human-Xyrelian colony, thrived under the twin suns. Ryan stood on a balcony, watching the city below. The streets were alive with celebration. Unity Day, marking the anniversary of the peace treaty. Beside him, Kayla stepped into view, her cybernetic legs humming softly, her silver-white hair catching the light. "You're staring," she teased. Ryan smirked. "Always." Down below, their daughter Lyra ran through the crowd, her mixed human-Xyrelian features a perfect blend of both worlds. "She's growing too fast," Ryan murmured. Kayla laughed softly. "That is the way of things, my brave human." Ryan pulled her close. "Did we really change the universe?" he asked. Kayla pressed a kiss to his jawline, her voice full of warmth. "No," she whispered. "We just gave it hope." And as their daughter's laughter rang through the city, Ryan Carter knew one thing for certain. He had made the right choice that day, the best decision of his life.